Okay,
Half there. It's very difficult. Very difficult. I'm sure.
let's get started. We're on Daf
I mean, that's the story for this day.
Nun Gimel. That's better than my story. Yeah. Better than mine.
You just heard a very
Yeah,
good story.
it's a good. Unfortunately, it's a true story. The lesson is make sure you when you buy the lesson. Is,
What you could do that to celebrate.
yeah, problem is yeah. I think yeah. Unfortunately, I think
So that's
yeah. Yeah, so we're on Daf Nun Gimel on the days 53b, second line from the top. It's a quote from the Mishnah. And first, I have a short story, since we were regaled by a nice story from Eretz, so I have a shorter story. Okay, the story is from Rav Yoshua Sova. It's his name. It's a story, a little bit of a famous story, but still, if you heard it, bears repeating. There was a fellow, an older bachur, older single fellow who lived in Shari Chesed. Shari Chesed is one of the neighborhoods in Yerushalayim. It's famous because it was a very old time, one of the earlier neighborhoods outside the old city. It's famous because that's where Shlomo Zalman Auerbach lived. It's also famous because it was one of the older settlements. Um, that was just built up all around it, so you would notice. But it's an older. So there was an older bachur, an older single boy there, and he was getting older and is not married yet. So one of the issues was he was, I guess his parents were older when they had him, and his father had passed away, and his mother was elderly and needed a lot of medical help. And the son was extremely dedicated to his mother in every way possible. Literally, his whole day was scheduled around his mother and her needs and medical needs and taking care of her. So it became very difficult. So he would go on dates, and at some point, the fifth date, I think that's officially when you say things here, whatever the date number was, he'd say, I just want you to know, wherever we get married, my mother is coming along with us. Just by the way, my elderly mother. So most of the girls had to think about that, and they thought about it. The answer was no. You can understand why. But one girl, that young woman who went out with him, was nice enough, at least had I guess she was an older boy, so he must have been an older girl with more life experience. He said, you know what? You're asking something very difficult for the people you date. I understand that's probably why you're having difficulty. Why don't you speak to Rabbi, in your live in Shari Chesed, go speak to Rabbi Auerbach, Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. He'll help you with this situation. So, it's very difficult. Most women, myself included, she tells him, don't want to, get married, start married with not just not just the mother-in-law who he's the primary caregiver for. It's not a good setup. Um, so he went to Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. I think only Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach can answer the question like this. He heard the fellow. He says, "Tell me about yourself, about your mother." He tells the whole thing, the situation, his mother's medical needs. She's an almana. She's a widow. He's only lost her father. He says, "Hmm." He says, "You know what? I think you're right. Your mother should come along with you um, to what?
Come along on the way.
No, when he finally gets married. Finally gets married.
Oh.
That would be really
Yeah.
that would be a quick way to sort them out. Quick. No, that was not. It's just, you're right. Your mother, when you get married, your mother should come along, and that should be a stipulation in the marriage. Let the girl know that one of the things that's very important to you is that your mother comes along. So he went out and kept on going out based on Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Auerbach's advice. And he met a girl, and he told her, oh, this is the stipulation. I spoke to Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. He said that my mother has to come along. She's elderly, she needs care. And this girl, instead of him saying, no way, she said, well, let me meet your mother. Meet your mother. And he met the mother. She's a very, very pleasant woman. And he said, okay, you know what? I'll go along with it. I'm willing to do it. So this young man was so excited. He runs back to Shari Chetzed. He tells Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, he says, Rosh Hashiva, Rebbe, you'll never guess what. I think he knew what, but he says, you'll never guess what. I found that the girl agreed. She agreed um, to have my mother come live with us when we get married. So Shlomo Auerbach said, fantastic. And he starts writing down a number. He says, what is this? He says, this is the number, the local assisted living facility. Your first job is to settle your mother into the local old age home assisted living facility. That's your first job. He says, what do you mean, Rabbi? You told me that when I go out, I should tell the girl that the condition is mother should come along with me. He says, I said that because I see you're a person with a special need of chesed, a special level of the way you treat other people with kindness. Not most people your age don't dedicate their lives to their parents so much. I saw you have that quality. So you need somebody in your life who is equally the same level. Any girl who would agree to that must be of the same level of kindness, of chesed as you. Now that you're engaged and you found the right person, that's no way to start a marriage, he said. So it's great that you use in your mother's neshama and the Hashem set it up that you can find your right partner in life. But at the end of the day, this is not so good. So let's find a nice place for your mother. You can visit her all the time, but she has to be somewhere else. And that's how the story went. And I assume they lived happily ever after. I assume whatever. But interesting perspective of a gadol, how to understand a person in one moment and being able to see past the moment and how and understand the person in this moment and in that moment and the perspective of all the times a person may have and to guide them properly. That was very impressive. Shlomo Zalman Rabbi doesn't need my scum, of course, but I think that very impressed how he handled the situation. Now, I'm sure this Bacher would have not said if he told him, "No, you can't. Your mother can't come along with you." He would have never said. He said, "Oh, then, I know. He said, just stop dating or something." But now you found the right girl. You got a yes. So then it's a work out. Okay. So Mirz Hashem, we should all be able to go in Shlomo Zalman Auerbach's path of peace. It's a man of great shalom, Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, and understanding people. So you get along with, hopefully, be able to understand ourselves and others. Mirz Hashem. Okay, that's today's story. And let's move on to the Gemara. Okay. So the Gemara is discussing, we were discussing one particular, we had the Mishnah that talked about the Tanai Ksuba, the stipulations of the Ksuba. And one of them that we're going to discuss today is the stipulation that if the husband passes away, he commits to feeding the daughter and her living in his house until she gets married. That's the simple reading of the Mishnah, but we'll see that in a second. So we're going to discuss that. We're going to discuss the concept. What does that mean exactly? Is that she gets fed until when? She's married. She's married what? Fully married? Just an arusa? What does that mean? And then the last part, we'll discuss some questions that were asked, a series of questions relating to the obligation, the commitment of the father to feed his daughter after he passed away. That's what we'll do today, God willing. Okay, so we're in the second line from the top. Nun Gimel and Vase 53b. Let's have a drink here. Okay, second line from the top. It's a quote from the Mishnah, end of the line. Banin nukvin tihabin lechi minai. He commits that the daughters that he has from her, if he passed away, then he'll feed them. The exact lashon of the Mishnah is, I'll quote it, Aditilchon leguvrin, until you are taken for marriage. Sounds like until they get married. So there's the machlokas here, what is the exact girsa, what the correct wording of the Mishnah is. Rab Tani, ad tilchachan leguvrin, the exact terminology we have in the Mishnah, until they get taken for marriage. But Levi Tani, ad tibagron, until they become a bogeres, until they become 12 and a half, 6 months after they're physically mature, until they're, let's say, 12 and a half years old. So that's the machlokas. That what's the end point? Until what age is the husband committing, if he passed away, to feed the daughters? Rav says until they get married, and Levi says until they become a bogeres, 12 and a half. So the Gemara asked, Rav afagav the bagar, but Levi afagav the insiv. According to Rav, they get fed if she's not married, even if she's 12 and a half, she's a bogeres. Once she's a bogeres, she's not in her father's rishus jurisdiction anymore. She's under her own jurisdiction. She's to her own self. She's not under her father's care anymore, even if he'd be alive. So why would that implication from Rav is as long as he's not married, you have to feed her from his estate. Even if she's above 12 and a half, that doesn't make sense. And Levi, Adagav the Insid, even though she had Nisuin, even had the full marriage, even the second stage of marriage, once she has a second stage of marriage, she's completely out of her father's rishus anymore. So she still gets fed if she's that'd be the case as long as he's not a bogeres, as long as she's less than 12 and a half. That doesn't seem to make sense either. So Ella, rather, everyone agrees as follows. Bagar velo inse. If a girl becomes 12 and a half, even though didn't have Nisuin, the full marriage yet, or inse velo bagar, if she had the full marriage, even though she's not 12 and a half yet, Dukula amelo pligi. Everyone agrees that those are enough to make her no longer eligible to get fed after her father dies from his estate. Once you become bogeres, 12 and a half, or once you're fully married, Hanasu in the second stage of marriage, you're no longer in your father's jurisdiction, and so too, you're no longer eligible to be fed from your father's estate after he passed away. That's what we said. Ella. So what are they arguing on? Ella bagar velo insid. Oh, sorry. Okay. Sorry. One more for line down. Sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 lines down. Ki pligi, third word in. Ki pligi, when are they arguing? Rav and Levi, when are they arguing about? Ki pligi barusa velo bagar. A girl who had the first stage of marriage, but is not a bogeres yet. In other words, let's say she's 12 years old. She's not 12 and a half yet. She's not a bogeres. And she had the first stage of marriage, not the second stage of marriage. So what's the argument? The argument is as follows. Rav holds, as long as you fulfilled tiblachon leguvrin, as long as you're taken for marriage, then you no longer get fed from the father's estate. She's an arusa. She had the first stage of marriage. She's, so to speak, taken for marriage, even though it's just the first stage. So according to Rav, she no longer gets fed from the father's estate. But according to Levi, she's not a bogeres yet. She's not 12 and a half. So she still gets fed, even though she's an arusa, even though she's in that first stage of marriage. And here we're going to bring a brisa to show that Levi holds this. That Levi holds as long as she's not, even if she's an arusa, she had the first stage of marriage, as long as she's not a bogeres, as long as she's not 12 and a half yet, she still would get fed from the father's estate. V'chein tani Levi b'masni say. And so Levi learned in his Mishnah, his brisa. That's an interesting thing, his brisa. Because Rashi says, it's like the second Rashi in the narrow lines. The Levi Sider Brisa, Shisha Sidarim. Levi also authored Brisas, just like Rav Chia and Rav Oshia. Rav Chia and Rav Oshia are the authors of the Brisas, particularly the Toseftas. But Levi apparently also did. Levi was also a sort of a contemporary Rav Chia, I guess Rav Oshia as well. He also wrote brisas, and this is one of his brisas that he wrote. V'chein tani Levi masisa. He learned his brisa as follows. Ad, what does it mean? What is he committing to? The father to feed the daughter after he passed away. Ad titibagron, until she becomes a bogeres, 12 and a half. V'yamti zimnohon the dinsivan, and she's waited her time to be for nisuin. In other words, what that means, she becomes a bogeres, 12 and a half, and she's waited 12 months to marry. Normally, the way it worked is that there was for a basula anyway, they would have 12 months between the engagement, whatever you call it, the erison, the first stage of marriage, and the second stage, nisuin. If that 12 months came, then there's different rules. One of the rules is that the father no longer would have to feed her. So the point is that, what is Levi saying? Levi's saying in his Mishnah, as Bryce says, excuse me, he's saying that when does the father have to feed her? Until she's a bogeres and until she gets married. That's what it seems to imply. Sounds like both.
Does that apply to a minor as well?
No, well, it has to be up until she's 12 and a half.
So if an 11-year-old enters a Rusin, Rabbi saying, that's it, full stop. No, that's gets
right. And Levi says she would get.
Yeah,
correct. Yeah. Now this brisa here, this brisa Levi, his brisa, if you will, Levi's brisa says, it seems to say there's two conditions that when does she stop getting fed? up from her father's estate, she has to become a bogeres, 12 and a half, and married. So the Gemara says, entirety, he's saying both? You need both? One or the other, which one is it? Ella, o tibagron, either she becomes a bogeres, according to Levi, either she becomes a bogeres, then he can stop feeding her, or she stops getting fed, rather. Oh, yamti zimnehon li'insava, or the time for her marriage. In other words, she's now in the stage of nisuin, that she let's just call it nisuin for argument's sake. She gets the second stage of marriage. Either one would be the sort of stop point. That's where she stops getting fed. But in other words, according to Levi, it's not erisin. It's when she becomes a bogeres or nisuin, either one. Everyone agrees nisuin. Everyone agrees bogeres. But according to Levi, erisin is not enough. Even if she's had eris in the first stage, as long as she's not a bogeres, not 12 and a half, she still gets. According to Rav, no. If she's not old enough, but if she has a erisin, that no longer gets fed. Once we hit erisin, she no longer gets fed, according to Levi. I'm sorry, according to Rav. Sorry. Okay.
So we're talking about something a bit under the
Yes.
the other situation, the father passes away, girl 13, 14. She's not entitled to stay on the house with her mother, who's the widow.
He's not
entitled to sustenance on her brothers.
Well, the postscript discussed that question. Right. According to the Gemara, she's not. The absolute requirement of the Gemara is no. Because back then they would get married younger, they would have jobs on their own, whatever. But today the postscript say that, in this situation, they would be required to do it longer because the accepted thing is, 12 and a half year old girls aren't ready or appropriate to go out to the workforce, take care of themselves or get married. So we would take care of them. But in the time of the Gemara, this is the cutoff for 12 and a half yes, that's there in the Gemara. Yeah. Correct. So the Gemara continues, Kitanoi. It doesn't ask it as a question. No, Lema Kitanoi. It says a Kitanoi. The argument between Rav and Levi is actually machlokas in Tanoim, whether erisin, once you hit erisin, the girl no longer needs to get fed from the father's estate. Ketanoi, it's a machlokas Tanoim. Ad masai habas nizonis. Until what point does the girl get fed from the father's estate, from the Yorshim? Achati ares. Tanakama says until she hits erisin. That's like Rab. Rather, Rab's like the Tanakama, I should say. And until erisin. Mishum Rabbi Elazar amru achati bagar. In the name of Rabbi Elazar, they said until she becomes a bogeres, and that's what Levi said. So it's really machlokas tanoim, even though we don't normally usually say lemek tanai, but here that's what we have. So one more line to this, and then we analyze it. Okay. Tani Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef learned in the Brisa ad the havyon, until that she is married. Havyan is like a lashon of we say makish havaya liyitzia, the going into marriage. Havaya is a lashon of going into marriage. It's like the pasuk says v'hoisel ish acher, she will be to another man. In other words, it's a lashon of marriage. So Rabbi Yosef says until when she gets fed, until marriage. So that's a little bit questionable. What does that mean? Iboy lahu havaya de erisin or havaya de nisuin. What does Rabbi Yosef mean? It means she gets fed until the going into the marriage. Which part? The first part, erisin, like Rav would say, or ad having nisuin, or like I'll have to wait to nisuin, like Levi would hold. The Gemara says take it. We don't know exactly what Rav Yosef holds, but anyway, Rav Yosef is a little up in the air. We don't know what his exact opinion is, but it's clear that Rav and Levi, and so too the Tanakama and the Tanakama Rabbi Elazar hold is a machlokas. Once she hits erisin, does the requirement stop that she needs to get fed from the father's estate or not? Okay, so that's where we are. Okay, so let's continue. We're going to discuss this more, a little bit more, this concept. So now,
So far, we've got machlokas then.
Yeah, surprise. Yeah. 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 So we're looking for the truth. So you have to. That's right. If you don't believe in what you believe in, then You know, it's not every if you
So the law, if someone's got a dispute, depends if they believe in Levi or Rav.
right or the Tanakh, right.
So there's no law on this, or just a machlokas.
It's I didn't look it up, but according to the lettering here from the Mishpah near Mitzvah, it seems until she has Arison. That's what it seems to be. I didn't look it up inside. It seems to be until the Arison, like Rav said, or like the Tanakh said. That's what it seems. Again, this doesn't really apply because the poskim say that today we do it longer. Now, I don't know if the Arison. Uh, there's two reasons why it doesn't apply. First, we hold that the poskim say that the girls they're not ready for this yet to get married or to work. And secondly, the Arison Nisuin distinction is like 3 minutes today. So until they're Arison, so from the time they get to the ring to the time they have the chuppah officially, they say the brachos, it's like what 3 minutes. Depends who's speaking on the chuppah, right? Or who had to read the ksubah, whatever.
So the language update where they set it, it just says that she marries.
I didn't look it up fully. I saw it mentioned that and then until it's a later point. I don't know. I don't remember exactly. That's a good question. I mean, we saw that the age 6 and up, you're supposed to feed your children. You don't. You're supposed to. You're supposed to take care of them. It's from tzedakah. You say if you're required to give tzedakah, you're forced to give tzedakah. Then certainly, you should feed your own children. Today, so basically until the child's married, plus they need and some. They need sustenance. So as long as they need is the mitzvah. Okay. So Amar le Rav Chisda, first one of the line, Amar. Amar le Rav Chisda. It's about a third way down. Amar le Rav Chisda Rav Yosef. Rav Chisda said to Rav Yosef, Mi shmi alach minei de Rav Yehuda. So Rav Chisda said to Rav Yosef, did you hear from Rav Yehuda that arusa yesh la mazonos and la mazonos? Did you hear whether a girl who had Arison, had the first stage of marriage, does she get fed if her father passes away or not? In other words, her father passed away, does she get fed from the estate once she has Arison or not? So we just had this question, right? We just had this question that was discussed by Tanayim. We just had the Brisa. We had Tanakam, Rabbi Lezer, Rab, and Levi. So Tosfos says, well, ask the question. The second, that's the third Tosfos, the second full Tosfos, the little one, Arusa. Tosfos asked, Lo shmiele plukta de Tanai Tlael. They didn't hear, they didn't know I did it the wrong way. Lo, it's an answer, it's not a question. The question is, what is he answering on? What's he asking? We just had this discussion before. So one answer is Lo shmiele plukta de Tanai Lael. Well, that he didn't hear. He didn't hear about this. Didn't hear every brisa. Not every Amora knew every brisa. Possibly didn't know that one. Inami shmiale mi boile hechi hilchasa. He heard it, but he didn't know how he paskin. How we hold halacha. So he's asking, what's the halacha? In any case, so we're asked the same question again, basically. When Rav Chisda asked Rav Yosef, what does Rav Yehuda hold? Have you heard from Yehuda? What does he hold? There's a girl whose father passed away, and now she had the Sinar Musa. She went to the first stage of marriage. Does she get fed from the estate, from the Yerushin of her father? So Amazon. So Amrle. So Rav Yosef said back to Rav Chisda, Amrle, Mishma lo shmiali. I didn't hear anything directly. I didn't hear anything from him. However, Ella misfara lesla. But from reason, it would be logical to say, it would seem to say, that Lesla, she does not get fed mizonos at that point. Why? Because the whole point of getting mizonos was because Chazal were worried about the zilzula, the degradation of the honor of this girl, that if she doesn't get fed, her father passed away, she has to go door to door. And since that doesn't apply once she gets married, has Eris, and kivan the irsa lo nichale de tizal, the titzel, because once she has Arison, her husband, they call it that, he's had Arison, it's not nice for him. He wouldn't want it that she would have to do this, go door to door to collect. So Chazal, when they instituted the takana, they made it so until he has Arison. That would be logical. Logic would dictate. The whole purpose of this takana that she gets fed from the father's estate. She doesn't have to go collect for herself. And once she gets married, even the first stage of marriage, her her husband wouldn't want her to do that. So Chazal assumed that's the point where she stops getting fed, because then someone's going to take care of her already, her husband, even though it's just the Erusin. So that's what Rav Yosef said to Rav Chisda.
So if he lives in Haifa, she lives in Eilat, how's he going to support her for a year for 1 year? And he's not a wealthy guy, can't support her for a whole year. So well, I'm talking about the days of yore, the engagement with the Rusins in the Sudan was a year.
Right.
So how is he going to support her personally?
Right. And in theory, how do they support her? That's a good question. She can come move locally, I guess. Rent an apartment. I don't know. Or he could, send, I don't know, give her a credit card.
He goes away in business for a year.
He can appoint a Apitropos. He can appoint a appointed guardian
But the
too.
father's not going to support her.
His father should support her too, but who's responsible? Oh, the father passed away, but the father's estate. The brothers, I don't know. You can make some arrangement with the brothers or something. It's a good question. And these things happen. That's discussed about the almana, like where does the almana get fed from? Does she go to the house, and where is she living? And that discussion does come up. So Rav Yosef said to Rav Chisda that it seems logical that she stops getting fed once she hits Erusin. Once she hits Erusin, she's already married, and her husband will take care of her. It's not nice. It's not nice. It's unpleasant for him. He doesn't want that she's not fed. He wants to take care of her. Some are lay. So Rav Chisda said back to Rav Yosef, "Im mashma lo shmiya lecha." If you didn't hear anything, then if that's the case, you didn't hear anything from Yehuda, then misfara isla. I would say the opposite. Logic would dictate the opposite, that she does have to get. Why? Because once she is Erusin, the fellow's not going to feed her. Her husband's not going to necessarily feed her, because we'll discuss why. And so therefore, Chazal, when they made the takana, they made this enactment, they would want to assure that she's fed even after Erusin. Why? Even the lokim le begava lo shadi zuze bichti. Since it's not certain for him that this marriage will go through, because he may find a mum, like a blemish or something, or there could be other reasons too, that he wouldn't want to go through with it. So therefore, he's not going to just give out his money for naught. He's not going to just provide for nothing. So it sounds like an unusual svara for us. I think once you're engaged, so like that's it. But I guess their mindset was a little bit different back then. He said,
Was he still hedging?
he in his mind, this is not
The Ruskin time?
yeah, he says that maybe I'll find a mum or something on her, a blemish, and I will, say it's a mekachtos, a false sale, false marriage, whatever. It's not so certain that he's going to go through with it. So he said, I'm not going to just feed her for a year. It was a year. It was a long period of time for nothing. So therefore, it says Rav Chisda that it's not so clear that he would feed her. So therefore, when Chazal made their takana, they made their enactment, they said, no, you have to feed her even through Erusin, because it's not so clear she would be fed. She would be fed. The takana of the Chachamim, the enactment was that to make sure she gets fed. Until Erusin, for sure, she has to get fed from the estate. After Erusin, it's machlokas. Is she going to get fed or not? If you assume she will be fed, so that's when the takana ends. If you assume she's not going to get fed, so you have to. Chazal would have extended their takana further. Okay. So Vika Damri, it's about halfway down. The first one, the line is lay, Lamed Yud Hey. Go across the line. Ikadamri. And there are those who say, let's highlight this better. Ikadamri. To the two dots. And there are those that say, as follows, learn it differently, the discussion. Just the opposite, different reverse opinions. Amrle mashmiya lo shmiyali. Rav Yosef said this. He said this follow. I didn't hear anything from Yehuda. A misfara isla. He says the opposite svara, that the other person's svara. You're here now, Rav Chisda saying it. Rav Yosef is saying this. He says, Isla, as far as that she would be fed in that period of time. As far as that logic would dictate that she should get money, she should be fed in that period of time of Erusin. Why? Since it's not so certain to him that he's going to go through with the marriage, so he's not going to just waste his, so to speak, waste his money for naught, and his money for nothing. So therefore, Chazal enacted the takana that even Erusin, because it's not so clear he would feed her. but even in Erison. Some are lay. So Rav Chisda says back to Rav Yosef, just the opposite this time. If you didn't hear, then misfara lesla. Logically, that she doesn't get when she's in Erison. The Erison stops, she doesn't get fed that period of time. Keeping the irsa lo nichala the titza to the ma'aris to the husband. Let's call him that, which is the Erison. It's not. He wouldn't want that his wife doesn't get fed. It's very important to him for that she get fed. So therefore, he would take care of her. So the Tchana of Chazal was that you don't have to feed her after Erison. That is, it seems to be the halacha again, that only until Erison. Again, not so relevant today, but for multiple reasons. That's what we mentioned. But in theory, it seems to be the halacha. Yeah.
I think with that, the bar had to be relatively low because poverty was much greater than now. So if you had, commitment, you got to keep your daughter until she was married.
Right.
Which could be, even in those days, when she was 18 or 20, whatever it was,
Right.
that would be too much of a commitment on the community.
Right. Right.
I'm just thinking that why it seems very, very, very low level of responsibility.
Right.
But maybe that's what they want. Like you said, that parents only has to feed his child until he or she is 6.
Right. Absolute requirement till 6. Yeah.
Why? Because the poverty was so great.
Yeah.
Kids, would be forced to, go out into the streets and find jobs. And,
Right.
I was just trying to think why. So just putting forward this question.
Yeah. Does make sense.
So if we say that there's a ksuba during the Erison period,
It's actually machlokes, but there certainly can be a ksuva in that period. And we'll get to
that
that.
was the maskana when we
Oh,
learned.
yeah, I think that may be the maskana, but we haven't gotten to that. It's on page something. So, but
But in the case where there would be a ksuba,
yeah,
but for some reason he didn't go through, he didn't take the next step of the suing. Or if he bailed out of the engagement. Well, if there's for those who, if you hold that there's a ksuba during Erison, then if he doesn't follow through, she should collect.
well, the case that maybe we'll discuss that, but the case we're discussing here is a specific case. It says she may find a mum on her son, a blemish they didn't know about.
Find the mum on her.
Yeah, and say that's a mekachtos, that's some sort, without getting into all the details. But he may say, so that would backtrack it and say it's a mekachtos. So it was a sale that I didn't know about. Sorry? No. He said now he doesn't want to feed her for this period of time because he doesn't know any about the moon. When he gets married, he says,
The mum could be, she limps.
Yeah.
He didn't know that she limps.
We'll discuss that later. All that, those cases. Yeah.
In your case, if the kasuba is written, then she has to give her a get, and she's a virgin. She gets the 200 shekels, 200 zuz.
Or whatever.
Is that correct?
Uber says.
If what? If
they're in a Rusin,
yeah.
right, and he doesn't go through with it, he has to give her a get.
Oh, he wants to divorce her. Yeah.
Which means
Yeah.
she's a virgin. She has to get the 200 shekels.
If he divorces her, right. We'll discuss that.
200
Yeah, we'll get to that. Yeah, we'll get to that. Yeah. It's even if, there's you can certainly write it even according to a ksuva, even according to ones you don't need, opinion you don't need to, and even according to the opinion that you do need to, it doesn't actually get written officially and take effect till the suin, even if it's covered here, so to speak. We'll discuss this more a little bit today. It's a sugya later. Yeah. So, but if you do, let's leave it at that.
Are you saying that Suba written during Erison only takes effect at the Nisuin when they get married?
Its obligation it's
It's drafted during the Erison,
it could be.
but it's in effect only at the Nisuin?
Well, we'll discuss that. Too many factors.
Okay.
We'll discuss that. Yeah, we'll discuss it. We'll discuss a little bit today. It's a sugya. We'll discuss it. We'll discuss a little bit today. Okay, so now we're up to a similar topic. We're going to discuss questions. There are 5 questions. I believe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 questions the Gemara asks regarding a girl whose father passes away getting mizonos. Different cases of getting fed. Different scenarios. We ask the question: does she get fed from the estate during that period of time? Under interesting cases, they're like unusual cases. Okay, so the Gemara says simanim. Siman de gavri sak zaraf. The way to remember it is these are 5 letters. Each one represents the author of the questions. One, the first one's Rav Sheshes, and then Rish Lakish, and then Lazar, and then Rava, and then Rav Papa. And the cases are Ma'aneh, like Memamenes, V'yivama, Shnia, Arusa, V'ansa. Those are all, the highlights of each case. So the first one is that it lists here as Ma'enes. We'll discuss that one first. Okay. So Bomine Rav Sheshes. The Rabbanan asked a question from Rav Sheshes. They had a question for him regarding a girl whose father passed away, and does she get fed from the estate or not? It's an unusual case, that's why they're asking it. So Bomine Rav Sheshes. They asked the following question from Rav Sheshes. Ma'enes. A girl who's Ma'enes. Mion is sounds like this. The Eraisa father can marry off his daughter as a katana. If the father passed away, the Rabbanan, the rabbis enacted for reasons like Peretz said, for like financial reasons. That's why they did a lot of these things. Like Am Mivriya is also for financial reasons. It wasn't like a girl slave, it's for financial, to give her a step up in life. So this is a girl whose father passed away, and the Rabbanan, rabbinically, her mother or brother can marry her off. But it's a rabbinic level at first. And so there's a concept of miyun. If she wants, she could say, I'm not happy with this marriage, like in front of 2 witnesses or something, whatever, that I'm not happy in this marriage. And it's an interesting case. She doesn't need to get, because it doesn't, like the marriage doesn't get, it becomes, that's the word, dissolved. It becomes retroactively nullified. That's the word. Becomes mafreya. Retroactively, it's like it never happened. Never happened in the first place.
We've got a situation where a mother brothers negotiate.
Right.
But it's imposed on her. You're going to marry
Right.
Mr. Luton.
Right. Assuming she approves.
And then she comes on. This guy's not for me.
Right.
And then she puts her foot in.
Yes, it's the first. It's actually in the Suin, a full marriage. Full marriage.
She got married in the suing, but she wasn't happy and she returned to the parental home.
Right. It's retro. Doesn't need to get retroactive. It's called mion. Mion. So they ask an interesting question. So this girl, obviously, her father had passed away because her mother and her father. This girl, obviously, the case is her father passed away, right? Because the mother, the brothers are marrying her off, and she gets married, full nisuin. She's like, let's say 11 or 10, whatever. She gets married, and then she says, I don't like this guy anymore. And then she doesn't like the guy anymore, and she in front of 2 witnesses or whatever, she says, I want out. She protests is the real translation, and the marriage is retroactively nullified. And now she goes back to her father's house, technically. Does she still get fed? Does she still get mizonos, right?
He gets mizonos from her.
So that's from the father's estate, is the question. She was married, and then once she's married, Nisuin, that breaks the connection to the father, right? It becomes Bogeres, 12 and a half, or Nisuin, everyone agrees. She's not a grusha. She's not a grusha. She doesn't need a get. Because it's a special law. Right, correct. It's a special retroactive. It's like, nullifying things. We don't usually do these things in Jewish law, but it's absolved completely from existence. It goes back retroactively and nulls it. So the question is, now she goes back to not her father's home. Father's no longer alive, father's estate. Before she had this marriage, she could have obviously been fed by the father. She was less than 12 and a half, and she was not married at all. Now she's fully married, Nisuin. Once you hit Nisuin, normally that's it. No more being fed by the father. But now she goes back to her prior state. The whole marriage is annulled. Well, Nisuin is annulled. Does she now get fed or not? That was the question for Rav Sheshes. So let's read it again. Bo'aminim Rav Sheshes. Rav Sheshes asked the following question. I'm sorry, the Rabbanan asked the question from Rav Sheshes. Following questions. Mimma enes. Just the case we mentioned, the girl who was me in. Now she goes back to her mother's home, her deceased father's home, the estate. Yesh lo mazonos or ein lo mazonos? Does she get fed from the father's estate by her brothers or not? So Amar Lahu Rav Sheshes said to them, Tanisuha, it's a brisa as follows. The brisa said the following: Almana bebeis avia, almana in her father's house. What does that mean? A widow in her father's house. What does that mean? Klomer mina erisin. Right, that's right. I read Rashi. Sorry, right. Klomer mina erisin. Rashi says. In other words, this girl didn't have the full nisuin marriage. She only had the erisin so far, and then her husband passes away, and that's her current state. So she's called almana bebeis avia. Beis avia means she's still an erisin, because during the period of erisin, she would live in her father's house still. So an almana bebeis avia means she had the first stage of erisin, but now she's a widow because her husband passed away before they had a chance, before they did nisuin. An unfortunate case. So almana bebeis avia, that's one case. Or grusha bebeis avia. Grusha bebeis avia is a case where, not talking about a little girl, regular girl, let's say 12 and a half. I'm sorry, that's not the case. Sorry. A 12-year-old who had erisin and then had let's just say this 12-year-old who had erisin and then gets divorced before she had nisuin. So she's living in her father's house, but now she's divorced. So either a case of almana, a widow from erisin, or a divorcee from erisin, or a third case, gush beis or shomeres yavam beis avia, or a case of shomeres yavam beis avia, a girl who had ibum, and then is back to her father's house. What's the case there? 1 second. Let me just. What's the case here? So in these cases, you have a case where you have these cases. I'm sorry, let's read it again. I'm in the wrong place. She gets fed because yesh la mezonos. Rabbi Yehuda Omer od beis avi yesh la mezonos. So the idea here is that since she's only had erisin and not nesuin, so therefore she still gets fed. This is like the opinion of the opinion that erisin doesn't stop the what's it called, from getting fed. So if she's in a situation where she only had erisin, but then whatever happened, let's say for example she became an almana, a widow, she still gets mezonos. She still gets fed. Fine, that's one opinion we had before. Rav Yehuda Omer, Rav Yehuda says, Od bebeis avia yesh la mezonos. If she's still in her father's house, she gets mezonos. Ein bebeis avia ein la mezonos. If she's no longer in her father's house, in other words, she's not in Arus anymore, she's, I guess, nesuin, she would then not get fed from the father's estate. So we said two opinions. This girl, she was in the state of erisin, and then before she got married. Let's just do the simple case, and then her husband dies. So now she's back in her father's house, in the father's estate. The father dies. Does she get fed from the father's estate or not? So the opinion here that's brought down this brisa is that she does get fed. That's like one opinion we said before. And Rav Yehuda seems to say the exact same thing. What do the Tanakh says? Bebeis avia yesh la mezonos. She's in a rusa. That's enough. She still gets mezonos. Rav Yehuda says, "Oh, the bebeis avia yesh la mezonos. Ein bebeis avia ein la mezonos." Seems like Rav Yehuda and the Tanakh are saying the exact same thing. As long as she's bebeis avia in her father's house, rusa, that's enough. That's enough. That's not far enough. It's enough. That's enough reason that she still gets fed. So the question the Gemara is going to ask here is, that's the same opinion. Rabbi Yehuda and the Tanakama, they're saying the same thing. As long as he's only erisin, not nesuin, she still eligible to get fed from the father's estate. So Rabbi Yehuda is just parroting what the Tanakama said. Why would that be? So the Gemara says, Rabbi Yehuda hainu Tanakama. Rabbi Yehuda is actually saying the same thing as the Tanakama. Elalav, it must be that what is the distinction between the two cases? There's something that doesn't mention it. What's the distinction between the two? It's mima'enes, a case where, our case, the case where the girl whose father passed away, let's say the mother marries her off, and then she says, I don't want this marriage anymore. She goes back to the mother's house, the father's estate. Does she still get fed or not? So, so Tanakama, the first opinion would hold, first Tana would hold, Savar Isla. She does get fed. He holds that she does get fed because that's what he said, Bebeis Avia. she's still in a state of Erusin. Rabbi Yehuda Sabra Lesla. She doesn't get it because it's Oda Beveis Avia. She left Memenes. She left her father's house. Now, retroactively, she comes back to her father's state, at least. That's the machlokas. According to the Tanakama, Me'enes does get, because she's now back in her father's house. Retroactively, she's back to her prior state. This girl in her father's house, she gets fed. According to Rabbi Yehuda, no. She left her father's house once, so even if technically retroactively she's back there, but she's not Oda Bevesaveh. She's not like still in her father's house, so she doesn't get. So that's how we look at it. That machlokas. Anyway, so that was the first question that's asked regarding a girl being fed by her father by the case of Mima Enes. Machlokas, Mima Enes, whether she gets or not, it seems like we hold that she does get, that she would get when she goes back. That's what seems halacha seems to be, according to the note here. I didn't see it inside. But yeah, halacha seems that she would get. She goes back retroactively to her father's estate in this case. The father's no longer alive. So she retroactively is like never had a marriage. So she gets fed from the father's estate as long as she's less than 12 and a half. Okay, second question.
So that retroactively, but she's gone through the halacha of Nisuin.
Yes.
So therefore she is basically a married woman. So how can they a refusal undo that?
It's a rabbinic marriage.
Yes,
And so it's a special law, special din that it gets uprooted, nullified retroactively. So it would never happen. Normally you don't do that. I think in other religions they have such things. But in Judaism you don't have that. You're married, you have to make yourself non-married. It's a Mishnah. Now either get or the death divorce document or the death of the husband. But this is different. The rabbinic marriage, the rabbis enacted that it becomes nullified retroactively. It's like it never happened. The marriage it goes back. So the rabbinic enactment and dissolvement it goes back.
Is there an age restriction?
That till this works by Manas, I don't recall.
Should she be married 10 years and said, like this anymore, and then we nullify 10 years of marriage?
I remember learning the case. That perhaps it was in Gittin. I don't remember the exact conclusion what we say. What about she's Nurchav Yelad al Kseifa, what if she's carrying a child on her shoulders? So that's the expression in the Gemara sometimes. She has two kids, she's a double stroller walking around, Yeah. I don't know. It also brings up questions about the age also, because we said that biologically a girl can't give birth until age 11 it was, and then 11 it's dangerous till 12, and at 12 she can have. He said that. So I want to look that up. What age does Tolmian go to? I think probably till she's a Bogeres, but until she's 12 a Bogeres. That makes sense, but I have to look it up.
Yeah.
I don't recall. I remember learning it. I don't remember the conclusion. So let's write that. Mima Enes till what age? It may be on like Daf Kuf or something. The big mistake. So anyway. Okay, so let's go to the second case. Boy Reish Lakish, 2, 4, 6 lines on the bottom. So we can do this one case. Two cases. Boy Reish Lakish. That's following question. Bas Yavama. So did he skip any kids? This is Bas Yavama. A woman who has two brothers, let's say, right? One marries a woman, no children. He dies, and now she falls to Yibum, to the brother. The brother marries her, and they have a daughter, child. It has to be a daughter. And then the second husband passes away. Sounds like a very tragic case. Yesh lamazonos or ein lamazonos? Does that husband's estate, the second husband's estate, does the daughter get fed from or not? Why not? Kivan damar, since we learned ksuvasa al nichse bala rishon, the principle is that when a husband does yibum, the responsibility of paying the ksuva comes from the estate of the first husband, the brother who married first, who passed away first, comes from his estate. So lesla. So this second husband, he's not providing ksuva. So there's no stipulations of the ksuva that if he passed away, he would marry. Or maybe odilma kivan di lesle rishon, if there's not enough money in the first husband's estate, the first brother's estate. Tiknu la Rabbana misheni. The Rabbanan enacted that he gets a ksuva, she has a ksuva from the second one's estate. So therefore, Isla, so even technically speaking, that he is responsible for ksuva in a certain way. So maybe that therefore there he would be responsible to pay for Mizona. So teku. So it's left up in the air as a question. Do we say, how do we look at it? The second husband, the brother, is not technically responsible for ksuba, so he's not responsible for all the things that go along with the ksuba, feeding the daughter in the event that he passed away. Or maybe no. The rabbi said no. Technically, he is responsible for ksuba. The first husband's, the brother who passed away, his estate doesn't have enough. So technically he is responsible for ksuba. So he's responsible for this part of the ksuba too. He's responsible for feeding the daughter as well. So teku, that's left as a question. Okay, I'll just read the words here so we can officially turn the page. By Rabbi Lazar asked the following question. Bashnia, a woman who is forbidden, a forbidden relationship that's a shnia, which means dirabanan, not from the Torah. It's permitted, like a grandmother, I think, is one of them. That relation, a child born out of that relationship, and then the husband passed away, is he responsible for mazonas? Yesh mazonas or ein mazonas? So we'll discuss that case again on Motzei Tisha B'Av, Monday. This guy will talk about that case. Okay.
So the husband, the brother,